right, everyone. Welcome to Advocacy 201. This is the second in our advocacy series, and I am Katie Mason. I am an early childhood mental health consultant with Mental Health Center of Denver, and I am here with Moses and Frank to speak with you today about how you can get in the room where policy is made. Moses, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. This is Moses Gurr from the Colorado Behavioral Healthcare Council. And for those of you who may not know, CBHC is the membership association for Colorado's 17 community mental health centers, 4 managed service organizations, as well as 2 specialty clinics. So I'm the Director of Policy and Member Engagement, and joining us as well will be Frank, who is the, his title escapes me right now, sorry, but also from our team.
So as I said, today we're going to talk about the room where it happens, and we're going to explain to you where you might have a voice as both a citizen and a voter, but also as a resident. The differences between like open meetings versus closed meetings, testifying at hearings, how to track legislation, and we'll kind of give you a little overview of how to track those kinds of things. So again, just where you have opportunities to be heard, finding the right place to go so that you can be heard, and why your voice matters. So in terms of opportunities to be heard, Moses, how do you see someone's personal voice impactful in each of the areas listed here?
Sure. Thanks, Katie. And as we go through today, we really wanted this session to be more conversational. So I really encourage folks to jump in with questions or thoughts. And Katie, hopefully you and I can sort of just have a discussion about these where we see it from our different perspectives. But to dive right in, we wanted to have some of these different rooms, if you will, listed on the slide. Really, what are some of these different avenues where the average citizen, the seasoned advocate, or even the professional lobbyist can really be heard? And last time we talked a little bit about the different sort of branches of government, the different levels of government. How do we sort of get involved in the legislature versus state boards? And for all of these listed here, there are some avenues to be heard. So with the legislature, of course, and with state boards, of course, there is public testimony, a highly structured sort of formal engagement where anyone can sign up and come and be heard on a specific issue. All of those would be considered open meetings as well, where you know that they'll be listed online, agendas will be available ahead of time, you can see exactly when the issue that you're interested in will be heard, and you can plan to be there and make sure that you are on the schedule to be heard as well. Local government will act very similarly as well, with having opportunities for public testimony. And beyond that, of course, there's so many other ways to get engaged and be heard. We always encourage folks to get involved in their local communities with what's going on there, to stay in close contact with their media and their local community as well, and see who are the folks in your media outlets that are leading some of the policy discussions, and how do they know who to reach out in your organization. And of course, we wanted to put voting on there as well. We all had a big election last week, and a lot to process and think about from there. And we really saw some tremendous historic voter turnout, and just thinking about all that means and how important it is. And right now, with all of the discussion in the media about the election results and the different opinions about the election results, it's a really interesting time to think about how our votes do matter. Katie, what do you think you would add as far as just setting us up for these different rooms?
I would add that as professionals and working specifically with the people that we serve, we also have an opportunity to encourage those individuals to be heard in these various rooms. Because sometimes they may not feel empowered to do so, and they really have a voice, whether they believe it or not. So these are also opportunities that you can convince your clients to get involved and to participate because their voice does matter.
Yeah, Katie, I couldn't agree more, especially when we think about, focusing in on the legislature. And as a bill goes through the legislative process, there will be several opportunities for it to be heard in committee. And when it's heard in committee, that's a completely public, open process. And legislators and policymakers say all the time they want to hear from people on the ground, the people who are living through this policy, the people who are living through these programs. And it goes to both sides. It's the professionals who are implementing or working on it, but also the people that it affects, the clients, the beneficiaries, whoever it may be. And it's the same in state boards as well when they make regulations and rules to implement some of those bills that were passed in the legislature. That on the ground perspective is so valuable, and it really is one of the strongest tools we have in shaping how policymakers make decisions.
Absolutely. And if we think about legislation in general, they they often try to make it seem more like an outline or really bare bones, and they use their state boards and executive rulemaking to really fill in the gaps and the details. So those are the perfect places that us as professionals can really have a place to encourage those boards to make policies that work for all of us and that work for our clients.
Absolutely, yeah, and it is so it's so critical that that voice is there as well. They ask for it, and when it's not there, it's really it's lacking as well.
Absolutely. They don't necessarily know that it matters to people if we don't step in and say, no, this is really important. This is something that you should focus on and could really improve the quality of life for people. Are there any other things that you can think of specifically around opportunities to be heard? Or should we move
Well,
on?
one thing I would mention is that we also, we threw the term closed meetings around, and some of these would be of a different nature. So for example, when the legislature has different caucus meetings, some of those may not be public, and that's where we have some different opportunities for influence in working with advocacy groups and lobbyists and things like that. But for today, we really wanted to focus on some of those really open sort of public opportunities. So unless there's questions on anything we just talked about, I think we can move on.
So there are a lot of ways to stay in the know about what is going on with the internet and our ability to access the World Wide Web. We really have a lot of things at our fingertips. How do we stay afloat when all of this is happening? And how do we tap into those areas where we can see what's happening, even if we can't be there in person?
That's such a good thing, I think, for all of us to ask ourselves as we consider what is our advocacy channels and who do we like to work with as well. Um, on this slide, we listed some different opportunities or just suggestions on how to stay involved. So with the legislature, tracking bills is a great way to stay involved and really prioritizing for yourself, which bills do I want to be an advocate on? And then just getting in the habit of checking the website and coming back to it, tracking the process, seeing when the bill is scheduled, etc. That's at ledge.colorado.gov. And if we have time, I'd love to show a little bit of what it looks like. Beyond that, newsletters are a great way to stay involved for all sorts of different engagements. Legislators in your area usually have a website. There's usually a newsletter on there, and they'll tell you, if you sign up, what they're working on and what they have coming up. They may even have calls for testimony on certain things sometimes, which is a really sort of great, easy way to sign up and say, yes, I'd like to be involved in this. And then they'll let you know. State departments and different boards also have newsletters, and there are requirements on the state to publish certain things when it comes to rulemaking. So for example, every month, twice a month on the 10th and the 25th, including Christmas, every month, there is a published Secretary of State register for all of the rules that are going to be heard in the upcoming board meetings. You can sign up for those updates. You can just go to the state Secretary of State website and find it, or you can sign up for specific department newsletters to get updates on those. And it's a really good way to keep afloat of what's coming your way and to help yourself prioritize a little bit on where is my expertise going to be the most relevant and where is my passion going to be the most helpful as well.
A lot of legislators, state departments, and also local governments have Facebook pages. So that's another great way to see what's going on in those various arenas. And I know a lot of legislators and other policymakers have email lists where they will actually send you the newsletter. So you don't even have to go to their website to find it. It will just automatically come to your inbox. So you can really determine what level of information you want. If you want all of the information, you can really burden your inbox with all of that. But you can also just, go to websites and pick and choose things based on what your interests are at that time. Once you know kind of what you're interested in tracking or engaging in, where would you go to find some of those things out?
Yeah, such a good thing for all of us to get familiar with, right? And it does depend a little bit on what you're tracking. So with legislative initiatives, for example, the CoLeg website will be your best friend. For other things, Katie mentioned social media, a great way to stay afloat and to keep track of things. But also, I would also encourage folks to seek different organizations or associations like CB8C, for example, that work on bills and initiatives and measures and regulations as a really good way to track. So for example, for clinicians, getting engaged with your guild. So, there's an association for social workers and counselors and marriage and family therapists. And keeping track of what they're looking at is a really good way to see what's coming up next, where do I need to be if I want to be involved, things like that. If it's possible, I can take a couple minutes to show the CB8C tracker. That would be helpful.
That'd be great.
Sure.
I'll stop sharing so you can take it over.
Okay. So many organizations like CB8C will have a bill tracker throughout the session. Now, this is the 2020 session tracker. So all of these bills have been resolved one way or another, but you can see sort of what a tracker would look like. Reading just across on this first bill, for example, you'll see bill number, a little bit of a summary that we wrote, and calendar notification will be really where your eyes should go if you're tracking a bill. It'll tell you what's coming up next. Is it going to be on the floor next for legislators to work on, or is it going to be in committee next where testimony would be welcome? Things like that. All of this other information will also help you sort of follow just who do I need to be tracking as far as the sponsors? Who's leading the efforts on this bill? And maybe if I'm tracking this bill, is it worth checking their website or joining their newsletter, right? what is some of the fiscal impacts or most recent status? What's the last thing that happened? Has it passed its chamber of origin yet? Is it moved from one committee to another? All of these different things will help you sort through where do I need to focus my attention. Katie, should I show the college website a little bit as well?
Yes, I think that'd be great.
Okay, so I had it set up already. This is the Colorado Legislature website, and it's a great resource to be familiar with on just tracking bills, getting involved. And right now it's in a bit of an interesting phase because it's in between election and the next session. So legislators are changing, committees are changing, all things like that. But I'll show you a great way to track. You can always use the search bar to find a bill you're looking for, or a great way to track information is by looking at committees. So if you're tracking a bill that you want to testify on and you know that it's going to, let's say, the House Judiciary Committee, going to this committees tab at the top and becoming familiar with the House Judiciary or whatever committee it is that you want to be involved with, this page will really help you do that. You know, their meeting days will be listed right here. What time and what rooms do they meet in? Calendars, committee documents, who's on here? How do I know which legislator might be from my district is on this committee that I could work with and advocate for? Committee activity, what is the last thing they did? What are some of the most recent bills they heard? All of these different pieces of information will be really helpful for you as you sort of navigate what's coming up next. What am I honing in on? What's the next thing happening to that piece of policy I'm honing in on? And where do I need to be to engage? Stop the share here.
I think, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Katie, go ahead.
I think one of the great things about having advocacy groups and other associations that can support you are that you're in the trenches, you're living this, and you have a very good idea of what's being heard when, where it is in the process. And those guilds and associations, advocacy groups can really pull that information together and can activate people to go and do something. So when we encourage you all to access newsletters and to understand what are going on at the different levels, it's really helpful in that they really can direct you to when you might need to make the time to go to the legislature, or to make sure that you reach out and contact someone to actually address whatever piece of legislation or policy is coming before that body at the time.
Such a good point. And yeah, the legislative and policymaking process is inherently a little unpredictable. You know, bills and regulations will get laid over or delayed or early. You never really know. And having somebody, an association, a guild you can trust, a lobbyist on your side can really help you know exactly where you need to be and when. And just staying flexible to respond to that.
Yeah. So speaking specifically about testimony, how do policymakers actually use that information? And when might they request it from someone like our employees at Mental Health Center of Denver or people that we serve? And kind of how is that organized?
Yeah, good point. And I would say always, right? It's such a big deciding factor for policymakers, legislators, board members of regulatory boards, local government officials, in really deciding on the decisions in front of them, on the bills, the policies, the regulations. Hearing that on the ground perspective can really give them what they need to know. And a lot of times it will be organized. And that's the benefit of having some relationship with an organization that you trust to help you engage. A lot of times you'll see associations like CBHC or other organize and line up testimony. We'll work with a legislator and say, we want to bring 3 people, 4 people, 5 people to come and speak on this topic. And The legislator will help advocate to get you guys on the calendar, or maybe just to let the committee know that you're coming and have you all speak at the same time. And having that organization can really help, because for the other legislators that may not be as familiar with the issue or may not be championing the issue, hearing your perspective as the constituents of the legislators, of the policymakers, right? And your perspective as people with some experience, either as experts in the field, professionals in the field, or maybe people who are going through the system one way or another, can really give them that perspective they need to understand what they're voting on and to understand what their decision will mean as far as impact for the people that gave them a job, right? Their constituents, their voters.
Absolutely. When Moses, Frank, and I met, we were discussing who legislators want to hear from. And I really brought up the fact that when I worked for a lobbying firm, the legislators did not want to really hear from the lobbyists. That was just, paying lip service. Like, we talk to those people all the time. So we spent a lot of time finding people that were impacted by the policies and having them go and testify or speaking to their legislator. And then in addition to that, how important it was that if someone was a constituent of a legislator, to make sure that that person spoke to their legislator, because legislators really want to know who their voters are, and they want to know that that they're showing you that they're responsive to your needs as one of their voters, so that you'll continue voting for them.
Yeah, that's so true, that policymakers on all levels want to hear from constituents and from experts. And that's really a limitation of sort of the organization, the lobbyists that are leading the efforts. They depend on having those voices there, your voices there, to make that argument really salient and really meaningful.
I would say the same of any type of local council too. They really appreciate when people come and provide community comments, whether it's something specific in that moment to an ordinance or a piece of legislation that they're hearing at the local level. But again, they want to know that their constituents are interested in whatever the policy is, and they want to hear stories and know what that real impact is.
Absolutely.
Moses, was there anything else that you think we want people to know about being getting into the right room?
I guess I would just add that it takes a little bit of practice, but once you get familiar with these resources, they're really easy to navigate. I saw a question in the chat about how to find the CBHC tracker, for example.
Okay,
and
great.
that's right on our website, cbhc.org, and you can just go over to a tab that says what we do and legislative advocacy, and find the tracker there. We have it up every year, and any lobbying organization will have that tracker up as part of their requirements as a lobbying organization, or a similar tracker. So just getting familiar with how to access these resources and honing in on the information you need to know to engage. And of course, making those connections and relationships with those organizations you trust to get you in the room.
Absolutely. Another thing that I would add as we're going through this that I'm being reminded of is that sometimes policymakers seem untouchable, or that they they're elected officials, and maybe I feel uncomfortable speaking to someone. But honestly, they're people just like us. Many of them are citizen legislators, so they have normal jobs when they're not in the legislature, and they really do enjoy hearing from people and are willing to stand there and listen to you and speak with you, because a lot of them take their jobs very seriously and want to earn their job and to earn your vote if they're running again for an office. So I encourage you to not be afraid that they are just normal people, and that they do want to support their community for the most part. So yeah, if anybody has any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, Paul, will you be collecting questions by email if people have questions after the fact that we can address next time?
Definitely, yeah. If anybody has any questions that come up later as you're thinking about them, feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat as well, and we can get those to our speakers.
Great. So we hope to see you on December 10th. Our topic is You're in the Room, Now What? And we'll talk with you about how to craft your pitch and convince people to support your way of thinking around policies and being convincing in that area.
Thank you, everybody, so much for taking the time with us today.
Yes, thank you very much. All right.
Thank you both.
Thanks, Paul.
See you next time.